history review video for May's period for numbers 21 to 40. 21. Ku Klux Klan, known as the KKK, began in the South after the Civil War, used threats and violence to intimidate newly freed African Americans, also targeted Catholics, Jews, immigrants, and other groups that were un-American. William J. Simons founded the new KKK in 1915. By 1924, membership was close to 4 million. Helped to enforce the Jim Crow laws and keep African Americans in their place. Number 22, Homestead Act of 1816. Homestead means a piece of U.S. public land acquired by living on it and cultivating it. 1862, the government encouraged the settlement on the Great Plains by passing the Homestead Act. Encouraged Western migration by promising settlers 160 acres of land for $1.25 an acre. After improving it for 6 months or for free if they farmed on it for 5 years. With property rights assured and the railroads providing lumber and supplies, more settlers moved to 1887. In 1887, Congress passed the Dawes Act, which altered the reservation system by dividing reservation land into allotments for farming or ranching. Under the Act, 160 acres were allotted to each head of household, 80 acres to each single adult, 40 acres to each child. Passed by Congress to Americanize the Native Americans. For a reservation system, most Native Americans were nomads who roamed the land, following their main food source, the buffalo. The government set aside land for the Native Americans. Native Americans were required to stay on their land. Because of this, the Dakota Sioux Uprising happened, plus Red Cloud War, Sand Creek Massacre, and a doomed plan for peace. Grange. 1866, the Department of Agriculture sent Oliver H. Kelly to tour the rural South and report on farmers' conditions. Realizing that farmers were isolated, Kelly founded the first national farm organization, the Patrons of Husbandry, in 1867, aka the Grange. Most of the time, the farmers spent fighting the railroads' misuses of government land grants, fixing prices and charging different customers at different rates. Most of their strategies never improved farmers' economic conditions. Grange laws. Grangers started pressuring states to regulate railroads and warehouse rates. Tried creating organizations called cooperatives. Cooperatives mean a store where farmers buy products from each other. This long-going debate led to several important court cases. Munn versus Illinois, dealing with corporate rates in agriculture. Wabash versus Illinois was a Supreme Court decision that severely limited the rights of states to control interstate commerce. It led to the creation of the Interstate Commerce Commission. Farmers Alliance. As the Grange began to fall apart, a new organization known as the Farmers Alliance began. By 1890, the alliance had between 1.5 and 3 million members. Charles W. McCune created Exchange, but failed because they overtended themselves. They wanted to educate farmers about interest rates on loans and government control of banks and railroads. Populism. Political doctrine that appeals to the interests and conceptions of general people. Created out of the Farmers' Alliances. Populism supported graduated income tax. Increase the money supply, restrictions on immigration and voting reform. 9. Cross of Gold. Speech was delivered by William Jennings Bryan, a former United States representative. He delivered a speech on July 9, 1896. Blamed the government for being too hard on the farmers. Farmers were being crucified on the Cross of Gold. Doing this speech helped him gain support of the populace. Sherman Silver Purchase Act of 1894. The act provided that the Treasury would purchase 4.5 million ounces of silver each month at market rate, and the Treasury would issue notes redeemable in either gold or silver. 1890, passed by the U.S. Congress to supplement the Bland Allison Act of 1878. It only required the U.S. government to purchase nearly twice as much silver as before, but also added substantially to the amount of money already in circulation. The Sherman Silver Purchase Act threatened when put into operation to undermine the U.S. Treasury gold reserves. After the Panic of 1893 broke, President Cleveland called a special session of Congress and secured the repeal of the act in 1893. Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, first federal law to regulate interstate commerce, reestablished the right of the federal government to supervise railroad activities. To railway innovators, George Pullman, inventor of the sleeping car. His company hired African-American staff to the Pullman cars, who became known and widely respected as Pullman Ports, providing elite service. 2. George Westinghouse, the inventor of the railway air brake, which stops all the cars of a train at the same time. Pioneer of the electrical industry, gaining his first patent at age 22. Thomas Edison first achieved international fame in 1877 with the invention of the photograph. 2 years later, he perfected the electric generator and light bulb. Had a winter home in Fort Myers. Bessemer process, developed by Henry Bessemer and William Kelly around 1850. Kerenge started using Bessemer process to make high-quality steel quickly and cheaply. Cheaper steel made it possible for more railroad tracks, suspension, bridges, massive engines, and skyscrapers. 5. Communication inventors. Samuel Morse, inventor of the telegraph. He was co-developer of the Morse code and helped develop the commercial use of telegraphy. Alexander Graham Bell, inventor of the telephone in 1875. 36. Nikola Tesla developed an alternating current AC motor which could travel further than a direct current DC model. African-American inventors. John Albert Burr, inventor of the lawnmower. Not much is known about his life, but he was influential. He did influential engineering circles during his life. Born in Maryland in 1848, son of free slaves, and worked as a field hand until he was about 17. At 18, he managed with the patronage of wealthy African-American activists. Jan Ernest Marzegler, Dutch Guyan-born shoemaker who invented a machine that allowed for the production of up to 700 pairs of shoes per day. He worked as a sailor during his teenage years, later moved to the United States where he worked at the Harney Brothers shoe factory. He suffered from tuberculosis and died in Massachusetts at age 37. He was a Dutch Surinamese son of an engineer and a slave. Lewis Howard Latimer, son of escaped slaves who became a master draftsman and inventor at age 15. He enlisted in the Union Navy with help of a forged birth certificate. He helped Alexander Graham Bell make the patent drawings for his telephone, improved method for producing carbon filaments used in light bulbs. Madam C.J. Walker, a hair care martyr and first female African-American millionaire woman, founded Madam C.J. Walker's manufacturing company and was a member of St. Aim Church. Her efforts to improve hair care for African-American women helped her to become a millionaire and were motivated by her own hair loss. Married Moses McWilliams after suffering years of abuse from her brother.
Business monopoly. Because of the company having so much control, trust, holding companies, and investment bankings was created. Many businesses and companies formed in the late 1800s because the government was not doing anything. Companies used social Darwinism to justify their businesses. Most businesses tried to control monopolies by imposing price controls, taking over their ownership, and breaking companies up into two or more competing firms.
Darwinism, number 39. A philosophy based on Charles Darwin's theories of evolution and natural selection, asserted that humans had developed through competition and natural selection with only the strongest surviving. Strongly reinforced the idea of individualism. Some industrial leaders used social Darwinism to justify their support of laissez-faire capitalism. Survival of the fittest became the catchphrase of the philosophy. Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. a law passed by Congress to curb the power of large business combinations known as trusts. Requires the federal government to investigate and pursue trusts. The law attempts to prevent the artificial raising of prices by restricting trade or supply. It is said that the Sherman Antitrust Act is not to protect competitors but rather to protect competition, along with promoting and preserving a competitive landscape. The Sherman Antitrust Act was the first federal antitrust law.